He thought he had received a $250,000 bribe to write a self-portrait for the former British Prime Minister, but he didn't know that the previous writer was drowned in the sea because he found the secret in the manuscript. The protagonist of the story is a gunman who specializes in writing self-portraits for famous people, and we call him Shadow. On this day, his manager introduced him to a big deal to complete the memoirs for the former British Prime Minister, Adam, who had just resigned. The publishing house paid tens of millions of dollars for this book. But the manuscript was like piece of shit. What's even more strange is that the former writer, Mike, died of drowning in the sea on a ferry in the early days of the manuscript. The autopsy report shows that his blood was full of alcohol. The official definition is accidental or suicide. The manager was so desperate that he killed him with this book. Although he had doubts under the temptation of $250,000, Shadow still took the job. In the interview with the publishing house, Shadow successfully convinced the senior officials with his own unknown advantage of politics. And that is what sells autobiographies. He believes that only an outsider can ask questions that ordinary readers care about, and thus dig out the character's heart. This is the key to marketing. However, danger soon came to the door. After the meeting, the Prime Minister's lawyer gave him an unimportant manuscript as a cover. Shadow was hit by a motorcycle as soon as he left the building. The manuscript was also stolen. This was obviously a premeditated attack. The other party mistook what he had in his hand as the Prime Minister's precious confidential memoir. Shadow realized that he might just be a scapegoat used to attract firepower. That night, a sudden news shocked the world. Former Prime Minister Adam Lang was accused of authorizing illegal arrests of terrorists and handing them over to the CIA to torture and force the Communist Party, suspected of war crime. At one point, Adam Lang went from a pop star to an international criminal suspect. Shadow took the whole crew and boarded the ferry to the island of Adam's hiding place. This island is isolated from the world because of the rain. Adam's residence is a modern castle with a simple style. The security is tight and the atmosphere is depressing. He met with the Prime Minister's wife, Lucy, and the cadet's assistant, Amelia. After signing a strict confidentiality agreement, Shadow finally saw the manuscript that was protected layer by layer. But when he turned it over, the content was boring and boring. It was just a water bill. Shadow not only sighed, no wonder it was worth 10 million, because it was not for people to see at all. In the evening, Adam Lang returned from New York. He looked smart and cool. He wasn't too enthusiastic about the new gunman. The next day, the writing work officially began. The manuscript's electronic version was strictly guarded. Shadow couldn't even copy it. He had to write it down. Shadow tried to dig up some true feelings from Adam's personal life details. But Adam was very resistant to this. He made up a romantic story with his wife, Lucy, due to political connections. He tried to create an image of his own. However, Shadow soon found that the date of this story was inconsistent with the facts. At this time, the accusation of war crimes broke out. The International Criminal Court officially investigated Adam. The media came in a flurry, and the little island was in a mess. Adam's team was in a mess. Shadow risked his life and drafted a statement for Adam. The situation was stabilized for the time being. In order to keep it safe and confidential, Shadow was forced to move into Adam's house and live in the room of the former partner, Mike. In this room full of secrets, Shadow accidentally found an envelope with clues left by Mike in it. Few old photos of Adam when he was at Cambridge University, an application to join the party that he was not satisfied with, and a mysterious phone number. Shadow instinctively thought that Mike's death was no accident. He began to secretly investigate along with these clues. At the same time, Adam flew to Washington to seek political shelter. Shadow and his wife Lucy were the only ones left in the house. Loneliness and fear drove them closer and closer. On a stormy night, they had an affair. Lucy told Shadow that Mike had had a fierce quarrel with Adam before his death. and the content was not good. This strengthened Shadow's suspicion. He found the last address where Mike stayed in the car, pointing to a professor named Paul Amit. And this professor is the person in the photo who took a close photo with Adam. Shadow drove to him, but found that the navigation had led him to Duran. He then realized that Mike was killed on the way back to the island after meeting Amit. Shadow got on Duran alone. He didn't know that a black car was quietly following him. At Professor Amit's house, Shadow used the photo as a knock on the door and saw this familiar scholar. Amit described Adam's past lightly, claiming that he was just a colleague of the drama club when he was in college and no longer contacted him. When Shadow mentioned that Mike had visited him, Amit denied it and provided proof that he was not there. His answer was clear, but a sense of panic in his eyes betrayed him. When he left, Amit warned him deliberately that if he went the wrong way he might disappear forever in the forest. As expected, the black car had been following him and played a thrilling chase on the road. Shadow escaped by chance and hid in a car hotel. He searched Amit's name on the internet, and a shocking discovery surfaced. Amit was not only a scholar, but also a senior officer in a close military-industrial complex related to the CIA. More confidential documents pointed out that Amit was already an administrator of the CIA when he was in college. Everything is connected. Adam is not a political genius at all, but a pawn planted by the CIA. All his political decisions are just serving the interests of the United States. And Mike was killed because he found this shocking secret. Shadow dialed the phone that Mike left, and the other party was Richard, the political opponent, who accused Adam of war crimes. Richard admitted that Mike was his informant, and provided him with evidence of Adam's war crimes. Knowing that Shadow had more core evidence, Richard sent someone to pick him up and protect him. At this time, Adam called, saying that his private jet could pick up Shadow on the way. This was obviously a red carpet party. Richard took advantage of the situation and let Shadow board the plane with the recording equipment, trying to get Adam's words out. At a height of 10,000 meters, Shadow and Adam played cards. Faced with the evidence, Adam's mood changed from a mockery to a shock. In the end, it was an explanation of anger. He claimed that everything he did was for the safety of the country. His words were full of political frenzy and bias. However, he could not justify himself anymore. As soon as the plane landed, a bullet ended his life. The killer was an anti-war protester. His son died in the war started by Adam. Everything seemed to be settled. Adam's death was the end of all secrets. The recording was published in a hurry. Shadow completed his work and was ready to return to a peaceful life. But at the press conference, an unintentional sentence from his assistant Amelia shocked Shadow. She said, "Professor Emmett is a professor at Harvard University." Shadow was shocked. He was wrong. It was not Adam who was recruited by the CIA. It was his wife, Lucy. It was Lucy who was manipulating Adam behind his back, pushing him step by step to the throne of the Prime Minister and executing the will of the United States. Shadow rushed back to the backstage to pick up the original manuscript left by Mike. He found a hidden secret. The first word in each manuscript is a sentence. Lang's wife, Lucy, is a CIA agent recruited by Professor Emmett of Harvard University. The truth is, Shadow wrote a note to Lucy, who was giving a speech on the stage. Lucy's face turned pale when she saw the note, but she calmed down quickly and continued her speech. Shadow knew he had been exposed. He left the venue. He walked to the side of the street and wanted to take a taxi. However, a car suddenly accelerated towards him. In the end, he was like his predecessor. Because he knew a secret he shouldn't have known, he paid the price of his life. The manuscript of the truth was floating in the air. It was eventually rolled into a wheel and submerged in the night color of London.